Hello everybody and welcome to another RCT2 review stream. It has been a while since we've done a stream, and even longer since we've covered New Elements Grand Tour contest. A couple of months ago we did the review for round 1, which was Cuba. Today we are back with round 2 for Namibia. We are going to split this up into 2 parts again, since there were 9 entries in total. And we'll go through 5 of them today, and then 4 of them the next time, which will hopefully be tomorrow. As I've noted, it's been a little while since I did the last review, and quite a few things have gone on since then. Not just round 2, but 3 and 4 have also finished, and round 5 is due tomorrow, so I'm a little bit behind. But the intention is to get going and to get caught up a little bit. And to get back onto some of these reviews. Meanwhile, we did pass 500 subscribers on the channel, so thank you all very much for following and subscribing to the YouTube channel. If you haven't, feel free to subscribe there and then get the notifications every time I post a video. Again, thank you very much for that. So, back to the review. This round was Namibia. So as we had kind of talked before, the Grand Tour contest is a different place each time, and a set of things that you have to do within your map. So there are 3 qualifications for the map. The first thing, of course, is it has to be themed to Namibia. The second thing is it has to have a striking landscape feature of some sort. Striking is sort of up for definition here and interpretation. And the third thing is all the parks must contain a roller coaster that follows the terrain to some extent. So, there's a lot of different approaches there, but honestly, there was a lot of really good work that was submitted here, and just the overall quality of the contest was quite high. So, let's jump into it. This first one is Twyfelfontein Zoo, and I'm guaranteeing I'm pronouncing that wrong, so apologies for that. But this was by RobDedede and Zarathustra. So let's take a look. Oop, that was a little too far. We're gonna catch the next coaster because the start of this is actually quite interesting. So let's wait on that. But you can kind of see this is split up between 2 different levels. So here's our big striking landscape feature, and then the coaster itself is down here. So definitely has the landscape feature and the coaster checked. This is a pretty cool top spin here, hanging out over the edge. Also a nice shoestring using those counter-rotating cars. It has a pretty cool thing. This queue would be a little unnerving, I think, hanging off of the edge of this giant cliff over top of the hippos and the flamingos down there. That's pretty cool. Have a nice little ride here. This ride a zebra, which is probably frowned upon in most zoological circles, but not here. Ride all you want. Over here there's a nice giraffe habitat, and looks like some wildebeest here maybe. So lots of these cool little exhibits. Lush landscape around here. But let's jump over to this coaster. So this is Petroglyph, and take a look at this because this is pretty cool. Using the Premier Skyrocket trains, but we're actually going to start off with a backwards launch, this is a really cool shoestring that Zara did. And now we have our second launch forward. We're going to go back for a third launch up this kind of scorpion tail spike. A little bit upside down there, which is pretty darn cool. And then our 4th launch here, taking us up and on top of the cliff. Now we've got a pretty nice little layout here. A couple of dives off of the cliff. We have this little drop through, and then the big drop down over. Zooming around here. Back up onto the cliff. Up around this animal that may not have made it, looks like. Nice big drop off of the cliff again, and then over here into the brakes. A pretty cool coaster, definitely. That launch is really unique, and I like the layout in general. I think it's quite nice. A couple more habitats over here, and then some seating. So both Rob and Zara are primarily NCSO builders without custom scenery. So it's kind of nice to see them branch out a little bit into some custom stuff, but still keep some of those fun things like the umbrellas made out of the car ride and the miniature golf course there. So there's a lot of nice little details there, using the splash boats for your stairs here. Maybe not an OSHA approved handrail perhaps, but that's alright, we're not in America. So some pretty simple architecture, not too much going on there, but certainly fits the area, fits the color scheme. Maybe a little bit washed out compared to kind of the landscape in the background. It sort of fades a little bit, but not out of the ordinary. Nice sky ride here to kind of bridge the gap and also go over top of uh, this pool with the animals in it. I think that's pretty nice. Um, I think some of what's holding the project back is sort of the checkered landscaping approach and sort of the semi-randomness to the landscaping. It's kind of getting towards some of the things here, sort of in clumps and using a good variety of landscape throughout, but it's a little bit suspect kind of in the middle here when it's a little jagged as far as rocks go. It's a little bit nice to smooth the top, smooth the bottom, and then have the larger gaps in the center. But on the whole, I think this is done pretty well. And there's a lot of nice little habitats. I think the zoo is a cool idea, just bringing in that aspect of it. And then the coaster I really like, especially with that quad launch hack. I think that's really clever. I like the kind of tower surround on the vertical spike here with the kind of mesh fence, as well as the lattice supports. That's a really nice look to it. And then the actual kind of temple-esque station is pretty darn cool. It's maybe a little bit long and repetitive, but I think the idea is there, and it definitely looks cool. So well done to these guys. I think they put in a pretty cool, respectable entry, and it's very nicely done. Alrighty, so up next, let me make sure I'm getting the right one. So this is Ojikoto, if I'm pronouncing that one correctly, because I read the README. This is by KaiBueno, and this is a recreation of a certain area within Namibia with this lake, which is Deep Hole Lake is what the translation is, and it has some German influence around here from some of the colonization, I believe, and then also I think there's some wartime occupation in here also, so I can't unfortunately recall it fully, but let's check it out. I think the first thing that is interesting to me is I like the takes on this one. So, striking landscape feature a lot of folks took as Big Mountain, and I like that this one kind of goes the opposite way, is Big Hole with water in it, and I think that's a pretty neat idea. And the coaster is super unique. It's it's a reverser coaster, which you see almost never in the game. So to me, big ups for that. Big points there. I think is definitely well done. Let's actually hop on board the coaster here. So let's take a ride here. So this is the Ugly Lake Tour. Nice little drop around this flat ride here, hanging over sort of the edge there. Couple little airtime hills here, taking all this backwards, so that's kind of neat. Passing some of these relics of the area, and if you download the Spark, the README also comes with some reference images, which are really great, because it can kind of show how well it's done. Like this is an old boiler, which is there, and it's a pretty nice resemblance to that, kind of based on what we have to work with here. I like this as sort of an adventure ride because it's also sort of doing some of the zoo type things where it looks like there's little habitats almost, or it's like little scenic things to see. And then we're gonna dip down here, go up underground, and actually we're gonna go fully underground into this, like cenote almost, like a little sinkhole here. And pops back out, and then we'll go right back in. But I love these rockwork towers here in the middle. I think that's really cool. Maybe one of my favorite features here, just how the coaster wraps around it. Up this the larger lift hill here, a couple little sections here dropping in and out, and then back into the station complex. A cool little transfer track here with the gear and the piece to move across, and then kind of park front or rear. We have our little camel ride on this side, Camel Tour. And then the little flat rides around that we pointed out. And I like this hacked whip ride. Nice little shoestring there, and themed pretty well. I think it comes together really well with this kind of nice blend of landscape that has a fair bit of grunge to it, that's clearly been impacted by man. So there's all this dumpy power grid and all these old relics of things that have been here and everything. But then the actual or the little lake here, I suppose. What was it called? The uh, Deep Hole Lake, as it translates to, was very well done. I love all the junk at the bottom of it. So the kind of wood and the cannonballs and the metal pieces and everything, and a pretty cool attempt too to do some variation on texture on the vertical surfaces. I think that's really hard to do in the game, and honestly, I think it's done pretty well here. It certainly has some room for improvement for sure, as far as landscape goes and some things along that regard, but I actually like how that's done, and I think this is some of the best stuff that Kai's put out recently. I think it's very well done, especially just trying to learn as he goes through some of these areas, and I think they're done really well. Architecture-wise, I think there's definitely a little bit of detailing and some other things that can be added, but I like the composition and the colors. The white, the red, the black, the brown thatching works all pretty well. And it's just fun. There's a lot of stuff to see, a lot of nice signs to read. I find this is a Kai's been doing this for a long time now with a lot of us, and it's kind of neat to see some of the old school ideas of signs everywhere. So here's the sign talking about this boiler from World War One, and here's a sign that says Walking Tour Visitor Center. So all the things are signs, so you don't have to read the README. You can actually get it all just by reading all the little signs. And it increases your view time and gives you a little bit more to see as you go through. And something more to increase view time is a special bonus map with a different color palette to show off a little bit of the landscaping, make this a little bit more muted around, and then give the lake a little bit of this green color. The ride name for Ugly Lake Tour certainly fits a little bit better here with this sort of unpleasant looking green color to it, but I think this is a neat take on it as well. While I do prefer the blue, just for the variation in color across the whole map, I think this is a neat idea, and it works really well. It's just cool to see that sort of different thought process along this as far as color goes. So well done to Kai on this one. Alright, so let's move on to number 7. Number 7 is Inda by Coaster-GEOFF and mamarillas. And this one's pretty cool, and we're looking at this sort of white desert out here, and we have our resort that looks out over this white desert, and it just so happens there's this great Intamin coaster through the whole thing. A lot of different cool landscape features. I'd argue that this is as much of a striking landscape feature as this giant waterfall is. But let's get on the coaster first and take a tour. This is a cool outdoor boarding station with these neat covered awnings. I like the shape of that and just how it's kind of set up there. A nice long transfer track here to hold all these trains. There's 4 different trains running. Let's take a look. Here we go for our first launch up and over top of this waterfall as we dive right off of it. You have to wonder which environmental protection group approved this coaster over top of that waterfall. But no matter, as we go along, some pretty cool dives there through the rocks along the water, a couple airtime hills here. As we level off for launch number 2, slowing down, and hit those stators and go once more. Cruising through this one, maybe a little bit fast for that first element there, but a lot to see as we're shooting through the forest here. The thick, lush type landscape. Ooh, very strong airtime there. Wake up the pool loungers there as we do our one and only inversion here. This roll over top of these folks who are watching the desert and come back to the brakes. Pretty interesting layout. Definitely has that sort of adventure ride style layout, but I think it's pretty neat. There's a lot to see there. Let's start around the station. We've got a couple of cool things. We have these sort of lodge elements with these tents and kind of private spaces here with the desert out here. I love the ground cover here, this red along with this white with the color palette of the dead trees and everything, and then the little bit of mark to the landscape here coming out from the trees. You can see there's a few more of those little huts as you go along out here as well. Now the actual kind of hotel space here has a couple little rooms in there, a couple of maintenance areas. We have our lower area down here, all glass on the side, which I think is pretty cool. And then on this side, just the way that it looks out across the space, it's pretty neat how the coaster is framed here and kind of carried over top of this boardwalk that runs all the way around and then kind of pokes out this little statue thing here and then sticks out all the way. The infinity pool is something I'm really a fan of. And then with the swimmers in there too, I think that's a really nice touch. That definitely looks very good. Kind of the blend of fancy and a little rough is very nicely done. So the little coaster maintenance building here, which has seen some better days, is offset nicely by these super fancy, ultra luxury tent type structures. And then we come across where we have the dam for the waterfall here, and the actual waterfall itself here with the rocks. The rocks come out as a little bit striking to me. I know there's a lot of debate about these type of rocks as far as scenery goes. They can be a little jarring when used in volume and kind of separated from other things. So not necessarily my favorite, but not too bad. The color water, the kind of periwinkle color, is maybe not my favorite. I would have maybe liked to see a little more blue, but I can understand the design choice anyway. So over here we have this big tank and a lot of this industrial area, again sort of offsetting against the resort space. On the other side you have this really cool turbine down here, which I love. I think that's pretty neat, just using the mine cars shooting around this thing here. That's very clever. And then you have some of the staff down here looking at the electrical panels and control panels. Here's something that's maybe going wrong, as this mechanic may indicate, so not the best there. And then we have this more local village, so we've got a football game going on down here, using Rumi's little football ride that he put together. And a couple of these more indigenous type huts, a couple little market stalls, nice bridge, and then the pathway here too. I do like how the pathway is invisible in a lot of cases, so it's not super defined, and you're using the invisible path through here, just marking the landscape as it feels a little more natural, and I do like that look. And then just the little low fencing here that would totally not work in the States or in Europe or wherever else, but is totally cool here, even though there's a big coaster screaming overhead very quickly. So, one of the better coasters I think we've seen so far, and a pretty cool theme. I like how it's varied, so that we go from this to kind of this area here. So it's almost 3 or 4 different landscaped areas that really kind of act on their own and blend pretty well together. It's definitely a bit of a jarring change on such a small map, but I think it looks nice. Definitely done very well, and very cool. So well done here. I think this was a great attraction, or a great map as well. Alright, so let us move on to number 5. So there's actually 2 number 5s. So we are going to start with Efundja. This is by Splitvision and Jaguar. And this one is super, super cool for its trick. So let's take a look at this. We have our non-traditional coaster here with the Vekoma Flying Dutchman going along. And we're working up around these slightly suspect rocks, but it's starting to rain, so that could be a concern, perhaps. See what happens. Here comes the flood. This is a super, super cool trick. Absolutely fantastic. Oh, here's a boat coming. There's rushing water coming through. Comes the coaster coming along. Love this little element, this sort of reverse corkscrew, down and up. Continue this layout, circling around. Such a cool idea. Custom ride, water supply. Let's just run through the space. Super, super clever. And here we are back to the station. So it's a pretty neat a neat concept. Obviously, the concept is kind of what rules here. The coaster is almost a backseat thing. It's definitely meandering for the flood of sorts. So um, you've got it kind of leading the floodwaters in over here, and then it sort of continues to meander around. Not a realistic layout like we said, but which is totally fine. Would have been neat to see maybe some more sort of cool, craggly supports with perhaps like wood tree trim and stuff like that. But either way, very neat. And I love this ruined station here with the witch doctor, or the witch doctor, village mystic, I suppose is what we're going to call them, up here in the queue line, summoning that rain shower, rain dance. I think that's very cool. Loving this walkway here, the sort of broken edges as it goes down, and then this rockwork steps as you come on down. Some interesting choices of trees, for one. Some of the Zoo Tycoon trees ported in, and some custom ones here with the Rotodrop tower on there, which is not a bad idea, and actually it's not readily apparent, which I think is surprising for something that now that I'm looking at it seems kind of obvious. Maybe not my favorite as far as the texture goes, but still pretty cool. Over here we've got the village itself. We got another little soccer game going on over here, or what is this? Not soccer, it is a... can I click it? There we go. Oh, it is a makeshift soccer field, so there we go. And that's two in a row now playing soccer, which is pretty cool. And here we do actually have this one turned into a ride. So this is the Bark Scratcher, which I think is a clever name. Oop, that's too much. Then a couple of these other little architectural elements here. Some of these huts, a little more kind of mud huts with the thatch roofs and everything. Very African Namibia type feel to them. But, there's not a whole lot on the map as far as that goes. I mean, you zoom out and it really is just a blank landscape with a couple of little village huts. You got your ruined thing here in the coaster. But I think it's hard to ignore how cool that hack was to get the river to come in at just the right time, right when it starts raining as the coaster comes along. Super, super clever. I mean, that idea definitely gave... a good interpretation of striking landscape feature. I mean, I'll say that's striking. That's pretty darn cool. And just really upped the level of this map that otherwise doesn't necessarily have a lot here, but there's just so much to see as far as the kind of action of the river goes. So very neat, and cool credit to Splitvision and Jaguar for coming up with something unique. And I would say definitely this one wins the most unique award for best idea within the space. Alright, so last one for today. This is also a number 5 with the same score as this last one. So this is Ongongo Oasis. This is by Faas. So the idea here is we have a desert oasis with this guy here who is looking for some water, and unfortunately he's pretty close by because there's a water park. So, too bad. He should have gone over this Master Blaster. But, so it goes. Here's his stranded truck with the buzzards flying ahead. It doesn't necessarily look good for him. But let's go have a better time at the water park while that dude is having a bad day. This is a pretty cool little water park. It's a very complete park within the map size limitations, which I think are well done. Here is our landscape feature, our striking landscape feature. This is the Oasis. And we've got a number of water slides and the coaster. As we do, let's start with the coaster. Just on time as we launch out and over this sort of half top hat thing. We'll wrap around the waterfall and dive down under the path. Nice little pop here underneath that launch track. Great airtime hill there. And into this big helix at the end. Now, pretty simple layout, but honestly I like it a lot. The landscape features that the ride follows are really well done. I love this kind of hop up and then a little bit happening up top here before it drops. It's kind of like the cheetah hunt idea, just without being kind of overtly cheetah hunt. I think everybody wants to copy that tower exactly, but this one is done really well, and I really like this hill, how it drops underneath this whole pathway, kind of twists up through this hole in the path, and then dives back underneath of the launch track. I think that's really well done. Now, water slides, there's not a ton of water slides, but I think that's okay. So we've got our little purple slide here, which has a nice steep drop and plops out into this pond. Over here, this red slide using some of the bobsled track and the ride vehicles that X7 made, so definitely a nice use of those here. And then we have our yellow ride here, an yellow coaster. So this is a decapitation danger, which is a little bit of a jab at Schlitterbahn, I suppose. It's maybe not in best of taste, but you know. And then we have our swimmers here in the middle, which were done well just to activate that Oasis space in the middle. I like the use of the miniature golf pathway here for a little bit narrow of a pathway over top of the water. And just the way that the pathway sort of weaves around in here. No real big structures, but the structures that are there are done well. A little snack stand here in the middle with the closed door here and the open one on this side. All the little huts on this side, and then kind of circle around, and you've got the showers right here, and the restrooms, changing rooms, all that sort of a thing. Ticket booths and everything else up front, I think are well done. And then just outside of the space, you've got a nice desert here. You have the sort of stark reality of the desert here with all the bones and the creatures and everything, and then going over to this another white desert here with the dead trees and everything. Very Namibia blizzard sitting there with everything. So I think this was a well-rounded entry. It definitely kind of plops a theme park right in there rather than taking more direct references from Namibia, but I think that's okay. I would have almost liked to have seen maybe another coaster, or maybe not even another coaster, another water slide or so, based on this being more so a water park. But I think the addition of the coaster was a good move, and the color scheme works really well. This is definitely the brightest entry and the most color cohesive entry that we've had. I'd also argue that this is probably the best landscaping that we've had so far, really kind of clustering that in the certain areas around the Oasis, and then everything outside of that is very stark. So I think that's well done also on the map. So definitely a cool entry here, and well deserving of the 5th place that it got. So that is what we're going to call for our first video here, so keep it a little bit short and sweet. And we will return hopefully tomorrow with another 4 entries, top 4. And then we will go back and keep on going, and I'll try and get to rounds 3 and 4 a little sooner than it took me to get to this one. But hope you enjoyed the video, and definitely leave a comment. I will certainly put a download link to all of these parks in the comments below if you would like to take a look at them. So until next time, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.